Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and we're here for Patron Hangout number 176. Welcome, everybody who is in the chat room. Um, it's nice to have you here. And if you're not in the chat room and would like to be, because my chats are usually patron only. During my two shows a week, the Hangout now and the Case show on the weekend, if you'd like to be there, please do click on Patreon below. And it's $5 a month. You come to 8 live shows, be part of the community, helps this educational channel, and it's truly appreciated. You don't have to do that, though. You can please just subscribe to the channel, and you will see every one of my videos. They all are public. So anyway, so glad everybody's here. Harper just rolled in. Lisa S. just rolled in. I've said hello to most of you because you usually come before the show, so I get to say hello. And some of you said last week when I did this, I don't know which video it was, but y'all said I sounded really funny and asked if I had a cold. And I said, no, I feel perfectly fine. And y'all were right. So like 3 to 4 days later, it suddenly got worse. And I obviously do have a cold, which is weird because the snow was so bad here in Maryland and the ice that I couldn't get out of the driveway for 8 days. So because I drive a Mazda Miata, and even though the driveway was plowed, it just had so much ice on it, my car wouldn't do it. So I just stayed in for 8 days. And I'm like, well, how would I get sick? I haven't seen anybody. But then I remembered the cleaning lady showed up last Thursday. And although we weren't like next to each other, we chatted and stuff. I don't know, did the germs just fly across the room? But anyway, y'all were right. So Sarah says, listen to your chat. Yes, you all were right. So I was wrong. I apologize. And I know one of the questions you're going to have is I was doing a water fast. And last week I was on what day was it? I was on the 14th day or 13th or 14th day of the water fast. And I said, I tell you what, I made it to the end. This is the 21st day of the water fast. And I have a celebratory water with lemon in a wine glass because this is the last day. So I've done 21 days of water fasting. Yes, I actually have not eaten anything, just drank water, coffee. That was coffee and tea with no sugar in it, just that. So yay, 21 days. And this goes to show, I think it's just fascinating that people think if you don't eat for like 3 hours, you pass out. And but I can go for 21 days. I'm 69 years old. I can go for 21 days and not eat, mostly because I'm fat and there's extra fat that will fuel the body. If I were 120 pounds, it wouldn't be a wise idea. But with the weight I'm at, I've lost, I would say, in this amount of time, the actual weight loss will be about 10 pounds, which was actually why I was doing it, because I wanted to kickstart, eating properly and losing weight. So I'm not going to lose any more than that in 3 weeks. 3 pounds a week is about the tops you're going to pull off if you're a female of my age. Lucky if you can get 3. And that goes to show you that's eating nothing for 3 weeks. So anyway, but it can be done. And I feel perfectly fine. I can walk around. I'm not dizzy and falling over. And I jump in the car and drive up and take classes and all of that. So if you think that not eating for a day or so is going to do you in, unless you've got a health condition. Okay, if you got a health condition, we're talking about a whole nother issue. Okay, so I'm on no meds. I don't have any health problems that I know of, and I'm on no meds. So anyway, I made it to 21 days. I'm very excited. And then this is my plan for the next bit. I have gone shopping, and here are my veggies. This is going to turn into juice tomorrow. I'm making different juices, and starting with mostly green juices because they don't have too many calories in. I use this guy's book. I love it. It's Reboot with Joe, and he's got great juice recipes in here. And I'm going to start out just by sipping the juice through the day, like one juice for the first day, and maybe do that for 2 or 3 days. And then I'll add in a second juice, and I'll work from there. And then we'll see how long I keep doing that, or if I add in some raw foods. And I don't know yet, but I made it through the 21. So I'm very happy it's over. And the funny thing is, I'm still not hungry. I could probably go for another week easily. I'm not hungry. The problem is I'm bored. You don't realize how often you eat or how part of your day that is. It's like, so I just want to, I don't even care if it's a 100-calorie dinner, some raw foods or something. I want to get a chance to eat and go crunch on something. It's just, gets just dull. And that's the biggest problem, in my opinion, not the hunger. It's the being bored. So, but still alive. Wait a minute. It's less about weight, more about, I know that's supposed to be a big health thing, detoxifying the body. For me, it's not. I'm sorry. It was about losing weight. I'm fat and I'm tired of being fat. So there you go. And I refuse to do Ozempic. I refuse to put poisons into my body. I do not know what they're doing to my system or what the long range stuff is going to be. Amphetamines are the same way. They work like a charm, but then you have heart problems and other things. I don't want to risk that with my body. I'm at an age where I'm not playing around with that kind of nonsense. So I'm not touching any of that crap. Yes. Does it detoxify? Yes. That's what people say, but that is not why I'm doing it. So I am doing it to lose weight. I'm just being honest about that. So yeah, then I'll be easier to kidnap. When I get that, I'll be easier to kidnap. That is true. How is my sleeping? Pretty much normal. I haven't noticed any changes. I don't notice any changes. Some people think that you think more clearly. I don't see that, but I also don't think that I think less clearly. I don't see any mental changes, sleep changes. I don't see any difference. Honest. The only difference is I probably don't want to go running for 10 miles. I'm not that energetic, Normally I would, if it wasn't snow on the ground, I'd be playing table tennis or pickleball, but I haven't gotten out for that. But no, I don't feel any different. So just a little bored. So that's that. Do I not know what fish do in water? Well, I think they swim. I'm not sure what that means. That I do not have any drugs to detox from. That's okay. I do drink Diet Pepsi. That's bad. I know. Still bad. So yeah, people do fasting for different reasons. I had a whiskey voice without the whiskey. Haven't had any alcohol for 3 weeks either. No wine with dinner, no tequila, no, none of that either. So it's just, yeah. Anyway, okay, let me go on to one other thing and then I'll go on to the news. I know everybody has to ask me about the cat. And I think this is kind of funny. Here's Johnny. So the cat is looking in to see if that stupid human is around or whether he can sneak in and not have to deal with me. Isn't that nice? Sometimes he's just such a wonderful cat. That is not mine. No. Mac the cat. Yes, he's still licking the food off my hand and he's still eating next to my bed. And he's still sleeping in his cat bed quite often. I think almost all night long now, because if I come out of the bathroom or my bedroom, before I even open the door, he's not there. But then if I walk further, I hear him going out the cat door. So I don't know how he moves so quickly. But as soon as I go back in, I think he comes right back in and gets back in his cat bed. He likes the cat bed. So is he getting more tamish? Yeah. He runs a little slower than he used to. He does sometimes sleep on my bedroom floor, and he does sit next to my bed. He just won't let me touch him. And I accidentally made a wrong move the other day. He was hissing at me. So it's so nice to have a useless cat. It's like you're supposed to get something out of having these cats, like that they let you pet them and they purr and they sit in your lap. No. Not happening, but yes, I did buy him a bed. I bought him a cat bed. Took him 6 months I think it was 6 months or 8 months before he even got in the bed. But now he loves his bed. So yeah, I'm a fool. I'm a fool. Okay, let's get on to. I was going to do, because I was requested to do Tracy Nix. Tracy Nix is the grandmother who managed to kill off 2 of her grandchildren. One by falling asleep on the couch and having him walk out and drown in a pond. And the second one, just a year later, by leaving her in the car to boil in the sun. She's now in court. And I was going to do a whole thing on that here, but I've got so much information I want to talk about with that after this show is over, I'm going to do a separate video on that. So I'll probably put that up tonight. So that's why it's not going to be here. But fascinating case. So I want to then go to, since I'm not going to do that, I want to go to the West Memphis Three. Now, West Memphis Three. that's who we call the West Memphis Three, the three guys, Eccles, Miss Kelly, and Baldwin, who were convicted of the crime of murdering these three little children, Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and Steve Branch, in Arkansas many years ago. And they took an Alford plea eventually and were let out of prison, but still considered guilty. I'll link my analysis below. I do think that they are guilty. I think all the evidence points to their guilt, but there's so many people, because they've been watching this Paradise Lost and all the movies put out by Hollywood and Johnny Depp, and from the defense, that they 100% believe these guys are innocent, were railroaded, and these poor teens, and but I disagree. Now, what's interesting is that there's new DNA testing coming out. Finally, it was approved for new DNA testing, and they're going to do this vacuum testing thingy. And they're trying to, there were some shoelaces that were tied, and they're going to untie the shoelaces and vacuum them and see if there's DNA in them that doesn't match the three boys, but matches, or the six boys, because six of them, in my theory, would have been there. So, and they would might match somebody else who they think is involved. Now, Miss Kelly's lawyer was John Stidham. Here he is in court back in the day, and here he is today. He's grown older like the rest of us. What's fascinating to me about this is that one of the things you see defenses do, which annoys the hell out of me, but this is what defenses do. They always want to come up with an alternative suspect, not based on evidence, mind you, but an alternative suspect that people will believe could have done it. Now, they had some hairs that were stuck up in the shoelaces, and there were some partial DNAs, and the partial DNAs match one of the boys' stepfathers and one of his friends. So that was partial, and that was the claim. Now, this whole scenario came up, and Dan Stidham was on board with it. Let me read you what it says from one of his books called Harvest Innocence. I wouldn't waste your time. Okay. Anyway, it's his newest book, so he was making his money off of yet another West Memphis Three fascination. Okay. He says here, let's see. I want to read you just a little bit of this so you can see the background. Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame and his partner Fran Walsh produced the documentary film West of Memphis to give the West Memphis Three the trial they never had, with all the new evidence that had been discovered since their original trials. When the film was released in 2012, Jackson said he abhors injustice of any kind. In the wake of West of Memphis, Terry Hobbs, okay, that was the stepfather of the boys back up here. Okay, now I'm blanking which one it was. It wasn't Byers. It's, I'm sorry, I just can't remember. He's a stepfather, so I keep forgetting which one it was. Is it Stevie? I think it's Stevie. That it says they're witnesses. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go here. Hold on a sec. Oh, Terry Hobbs, it says here, in the wake of West Memphis, Terry Hobbs remains a lightning rod for the case. In many minds, including Dan Stidham's for the longest time, he murdered those three boys. There is much circumstantial evidence that continues to point to him, including some less than conclusive DNA evidence of his hair found in a knot used to tie one of the victims, which he is always deflected by noting the three boys often played in his house. Yeah, very easily transferable evidence. Touch DNA, fibers, always very transferable. The boys did play together. They're always together. So the fact that something's in a shoelace is not huge. Now, I spent time talking with Terry Hobbs. We've had conversations with a bunch of us who've worked to try to understand, was there any reason to put Terry Hobbs in the picture? I have never found any evidence that said Terry Hobbs had anything to do with this. He's denied he's ever harmed his stepson and the other two boys. And my analysis of crime does not put him there, nor is it the type of crime that I think he would be involved in. But for Stidham, he has been pushing this, and all over the internet. Terry Hobbs did it. Terry Hobbs did it. Terry Hobbs did it. This huge gang all over the internet. Terry Hobbs is guilty. Now, what's happening now? So, what's happening now is this. So, Now he says there's different theories. By the time of the evidentiary hearings, the post-conviction lawyers and I had approached notable alumni of the FBI's criminal profiling section, known as the Behavioral Analysis Unit, or BAU. These profilers' careful analyses demonstrated why the original theories of the occult involvement, which really wasn't the original theory, were uncorroborated and unsupported. I met with 2 retired FBI profiles from the Academy Group, including Mike Napier. I don't know why it doesn't mention the other one who's retired. Was it John Douglas? Because he's had his nose in it. Including Mike Napier at the crime scene. And they both felt that the proximity of the crime to the busy interstate and truck stop likely meant that they could be looking for a very mobile serial killer, potentially a long-haul truck driver. As I am now aware, after having spent 35 years as a career as both lawyer and judge, then so on and so forth. So now, suddenly, it's a long-distance truck driver. Why is that? I'm going to tell you why that is. Because he doesn't expect to find any DNA from stepdaddy. So he's moved on to another theory because there was a truck stop. Now, mind you, that truck stop was highly investigated. Credit cards, who all the truck drivers were, highly investigated. And they never linked them to the crime. So now, the FBI has done a study on long-haul truck drivers. And yes, there are serial killers. There's a whole program that they have together of serial homicides among truck drivers. Why is this? Because they're alone in their truck driving great distances. So when you get a psycho in one of those as a truck driver, he pulls into truck stops oftentimes, and there's what they call, I forgot what's called truck stop lizards or whatever, prostitutes in those truck stops who will get in the truck. And if nobody sees that girl get in the truck, he takes off with her, rapes and murders her, and throws her in a field. By the time you find her, I call it body in the field, dead body in the field. You know, where did that body come from? And then, it's been out there in the elements. Very hard to figure out who did it unless there's DNA. And also they can pick up hitchhikers. Same thing. You've got people who aren't going to be missed for a long time, and therefore they're very vulnerable to truck drivers. So yes, is there a whole thing about finding truck drivers who are serial killers? So Dan now says, oh, you see, because this truck thing was near, the serial killer, who is going to be a serial killer, went in and killed 3 little children. Really? Okay. None of the crime matches a serial killer at all. It matches a wilding and more than one person that went nuts on these little children who were in the woods, very short period of time, and there are 3 teenage boys who are believed to be following them or seen going into the woods, who then followed them into the woods. The fact that some guy up on a truck stop is going to go wander into the woods and just as luck the 3 boys show up at that time, and he decides not to grab one of them and rape and murder, but just to do mean things to them and drown them. What? So this is the new theory, because Dan Stidham doesn't believe they're going to come up with DNA to match Terry Hobbs. And if they can't match Terry Hobbs, they got to have another theory for people to believe in. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen, whether they're going to see as this new theory comes out, and he says he knows who it is. He's got a person in mind, but he can't tell us who it is. Of course not. He knows this is this guy, some guy in prison. And he'll push that one, anything to make those 3 boys look innocent. And people aren't paying attention to the evidence. They're just paying attention to this game that defense attorneys are playing. Now, let's see now, mind you, I will say this. If that vacuum thingy came back with actual DNA that was provable, not what does he say to the other one? And it's inconclusive on Terry Hobbs, inconclusive. Well, if it's inconclusive on him, let's see if some DNA comes out that's inconclusive on some truck driver. Depends how, hold on a second. It depends how many markers you got there, so if it's not enough, it's not conclusive. Now, if it's enough to be like pretty sure, like 1 out of 100,000 or 1 out of 200,000, and he's a trucker that's right in that area at the exact time, well, then you got something. Could that be possible? I'll go with anything's possible. And if they come up with the DNA from somebody who literally was in that truck stop at that time, then I'll have to say, wow, I've been completely wrong about this case from the beginning. I wouldn't be able to argue that. If they come up with some very minor amount of, maybe it could be this guy, but this guy wasn't even there. They can't prove he was there at the time. He was halfway across the country, all that kind of nonsense. So anyway, the testing is supposed to come back early 2025. So we're in 2025 now. Let's see what the testing comes back with. I'm going to say probably nothing. So that's my guess, but it's the new claim. Melissa says, I fell for Paradise Lost so bad. I was the weirdo in the band shirt, so it pulled at my heartstrings. Not anymore. It like making a murderer. When you do everything from the defense point of view and you twist and manipulate all the information, and there's no one to argue it in that documentary, you're being fed what they want you to believe. It's propaganda. It's propaganda for the defense. They have the right to make it. There's nothing that said they can't make it. But the problem is people go in believing that they're being told the truth and the facts, and they are not. So, and those documentaries are not honest. I can guarantee you that anymore. Making a Murder, one of the most dishonest, in my opinion, dishonest documentaries I've ever seen. And it appalls me because there are victims of these crimes. Teresa Hallback, brutally murdered by Stephen Avery. And these 3 little boys brutally murdered by 3 teens. And now we're going to say, oh, everybody's, they're all wonderful and fantastic. And there's no evidence ever pointing to any of those people. And it's all a government collusion and conspiracy to take down, in Stephen Avery's case, because he was suing, because he was wrongly convicted previously. And because he was a doppelganger for the guy who committed the crime, and he was a psychopathic predator. So, I mean, they thought it was him for sure. Turned out not to be, and he sued. But the concept that the police are going to pin this murder on him, the police officers aren't having an issue with the lawsuit. They're not paying out the bucks. They don't care. And, and it was also kind of amazing that Stephen Avery had Teresa Hallback come to his house, and that was the last time she was seen. I don't know how the police planned him to do that. It's amazing. So then these 3 boys, the same thing. It's like suddenly they're innocent angels, and they're all wrongly accused, even though Miss Kelly confessed over and over and over again under no pressure. He does not have a low IQ. He's not bright, but he's not intellectually challenged like they tried to claim. He's not. He went on to having girlfriends and driving cars and having jobs. He's not that. He may be not that bright, and maybe uneducated, but so is a lot of people around there in the world. I mean, any place you're going to find them. So that was all nonsense. And Damien Eccles was a very creepy, scary character who was the leader of this whole thing, in my opinion. Jason was his little protege. And yeah, they weren't these nice, innocent boys that just happened to be listening to the wrong music and wearing the wrong T-shirts. But that's what they'd like you to believe. No, so try to see what this comment is. Mike respectfully disagrees. Okay, this is true. You can respectfully disagree, but if you do so, before you respectfully disagree, one thing I always recommend to people, because I see people do that, and they actually don't know all of my conclusions. Watch my entire video. I put links in that video to other people who've done a lot of investigative stuff. You can read through all of those, then come back and state your case, because it's very frustrating arguing with people who, I'm not saying you're one of them, Mike, okay? But what's frustrating is when people come through and say, oh, well, that's just wrong. That's not true. This is what happened. And it's not the way it is. And they've never listened to my thorough analysis. They've never looked at the links I provided, which there's some really excellent links with tons and tons of information. This is the side you will never hear from the other side. So while you have a right to your own opinion, if you're going to argue it on my channel, this is always my point. Anybody who argues on my channel, what I want them to do, because I see this all the time. Somebody will come in and they will start posting comments in the comment section. Clearly never even listening to my video. They don't care about my video. They're coming in to say, oh, she thinks they didn't do it. And they just come in and start stating their case. Hey, it's my channel. And if you don't have the respect to listen to me first and check all my links out and understand things, then don't come and comment on my channel. You can comment on your channel all you want, but don't come without first listening to everything that is on what I'm saying. Then you can comment on my channel and very respectfully do so in a state where you think blah, 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 blah. And then I'm okay with that. But I try also to keep huge arguments off my channel, simply because I'm here to teach as a profiler. And as a profiler, I will teach that the evidence in this case supports that they are guilty. So, I want people to respect me as also a teacher. So if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. And if you don't want to bother to read all the stuff to even talk about it, I just suggest someplace else to do that. Otherwise, I spend all my time arguing with people, and I won't argue over every detail. I don't have the energy to do that. Once I've done the case, I'm not going to sit here and argue separately with people. And people want me to do that, but I can't do that, because then I wouldn't do this channel. I'd be spending all day long arguing back about stating my point. Well, I've already stated my point. It's there. So if you don't like it, you don't have to like it. That's true too. So yes, while I do encourage some discussion, I prefer to be done very respectfully, and also prefer to be done only after people actually pay attention to whatever has been said. And again, a lot of times I'm not going to comment back because I don't have the time to do so. And take people, when I see things out of context and with clearly not understanding the whole case, it's not worth the effort, because I'm just, you can't pick out little things, say this is why, this is why, this is why. No, it's an entirety. It's the entirety of the evidence. So you have to really understand the entirety of the evidence to put up an argument. That's just my opinion on that. So, but doesn't mean I don't like it, Mike. And you can have a difference of opinion with me. That's always acceptable. I'm not necessarily right. Always, no, I'm kidding you. Thank you, Mike. That's what I appreciate. I mean, it becomes exhausting, is what it does. And people. Here's a funny thing: people have no idea on the other side of my camera what a YouTuber goes through. People sometimes send me emails, and they're like, "Why haven't you answered me? Why don't you respond?" I'm like, do you know how many emails I get every day? You have not a clue. The amount of emails, the amount of comments, the stuff is overwhelming. And that's why the people who have the big channels, they don't respond ever to anybody. You'll never see them comment in the comment section. They're done with that. They say, oh, I got 1 million subscribers. I don't have time for that crap. And they don't. And I understand that. You don't see Dr. Grande responding to anybody. It's not because he's mean or anything. It's just he's making a fortune, and he has so much work. I mean, actually, his work is very limited. He doesn't do that much research to put these shows out, so he actually has a good deal going. But he's not going to comment when he's got 1,000 comments. He's going to comment. No, I comment because I still can, and I like to comment. I like when I get to know people, even in the comments on my channel. I get to know people. I enjoy the communications. At this point, I get to do that. And since I don't think my channel is ever going to be a massively huge one, I may have the ability to respond back more than many channels do. And I do put some time into it. But it gets to a point where sometimes you can't answer everybody's question on a case, especially when people come in like 3 years later and they say, Pat, on this case, I just watched your video. What do you think happened at this particular time? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't hardly remember the case now. I can't comment on something I did 3 years ago. I'd have to watch my entire video over again. And I don't have 2 hours of extra time to watch the whole video to answer the one question. So I don't. So if you want your questions answered, you do have to kind of jump in on the original video pretty quickly, that I might be able to still remember something and respond to it. So it's just the amount of the overwhelming part. That's the reason that there's limits on what one can do. So anyway, well, maybe later says, when I don't agree with Pat, I still know she's probably right and I'm wrong. Well, not necessarily so, but I would look at it from this point of view. Even the profiles can disagree with each other. This is true. And that's why we also have, prosecutions and defenses. They disagree with each other. So we're always going to have disagreement. So I'm not always right. This is true. But I do hope that people respect, depending on their background and what they come from, whether they have as much knowledge, education, and experience as I do in a particular field. Because I see people oftentimes will do something to the effect of, oh, shoot, I thought I dropped my glass. They'll do something to the effect of like, well, Pat, why don't you sell your book in this way? And I'm like, why are you coming up with ideas how I can sell a book? Well, I heard this and that. I'm like, have you ever sold a book? And the answer is no. Don't you think that person has I have 5 main books on the market, and I've been with 4 different publishers, 4 different literary agents over the years, and I've also self-published. Don't you think I may know more about publishing than you? Just saying. So if I'm just learning how to sing, this week I'm not going to sing too well in the choir that I'm in. But I would never go up to the guy who runs the choir and think that, oh, by the way, haven't you thought about doing this with the sopranos? And punch me in the face. Didn't you just start singing like recently? What do you know about? Yeah. So you have to keep that in mind. And that's why I talk about respect. I always try to respect somebody who has knowledge over what I have knowledge of. A DNA expert knows more about DNA than I do. People will know more about the court. A lot of people want me to do court stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm not capable. I know little bits in here, but I'm not capable of giving you full information about what should be going on in court and what the judge is doing and blah, blah, blah. I don't know any of that stuff. And I'm not going to pretend I do, because I don't. So when I see somebody has more expertise in the field, of strong expertise, then I'm like, I will bow to the fact that they're more likely to be right than me. So yeah. Okay, let me go on to something else. I want to just talk about the scam, because people are falling for the scam, and it's just really amazing me. It's Lululemon. It's been on TikTok, which is maybe going to be shut down in like a day or so, which I'm kind of sad about, because I actually enjoy TikTok. By the way, I keep forgetting to do this. In case you want to check out my new channel, it is Dear Profiler Pat, where I give advice. And I just put up another one today. It's actually from this channel, but I've moved it over. And I have a brand new one, which will be coming up this weekend. So check out, if you want advice, check out and do subscribe, because I'm still struggling to get this thing monetized. Anyway, this thing, over at Lululemon, over at TikTok, there is this thing where you'll see somebody come on and say, I worked at Lululemon for 4 years. And they will tell you that they work there, and this is what you don't know. And this is how the sales that are 90% off. And then if you bought something that it'll never, even if it has holes in it, you can bring it back a year later, 2 years later, and they'll just replace it for you. And on top of that, then they get to the big one. If you're willing to do a survey, you'll get $700, something like that, $700 free card for $700 worth of stuff from Lululemon. Seriously. So 700, really, you're going to do a little survey and you're going to get a $700 card credit for $700 worth of stuff at Lululemon? Are you insane? If you fall for this, you ought to check that you are really, really naive and gullible, because nobody's going to give you that. They might give you a $5 card, maybe 10, but it maybe has to be off on sale items that aren't on sale, items that aren't on sale. So they're just giving you a sale price. There's no way they're giving you that kind of cash. And the funny thing is, the way you know it's a scam, besides that being obvious, and that Lululemon is going to take back stuff that you ripped up 2 years later. They're going to give you a brand new one just for the sake of it. And they're going to have 90% off sales. That is not happening. So it's too good to be true is usually true. But here's how you know, especially that this is junk. So look at, I'm only showing you a screenshot, but look at, he says, I worked at Lululemon for 4 years. She says, I worked at Lululemon for 4 years. This one says, and now I'm spilling all the tea. I'm exposing all the drama they hide from customers. Now, remember the tea thing. I worked at Lululemon for 4 years. After working at Lululemon, my boss fired me for not coming in because my boyfriend left me. Now I'm spilling the tea. They train us to hide from the public. I worked at Lululemon for 4 years. I worked for 4 years working at Lululemon. I was fired because of my sick cat. I might as well spell all the secrets that they trained us to hide from you. You notice a similarity, anybody? Like almost word for word. Some of them changed just a couple of words, but these are all over TikTok, like dozens of them. Somebody standing there doing this thing and saying these things. And if it were true, why would everybody use the exact same language? That seems a little off. And then you look in their comments. Here's a comment on this, guys. And this person writes Lululemon secrets. The next person writes Lululemon secrets. The next person writes Lululemon secrets. The next person writes Lululemon secrets. This goes on for hundreds of them. Here's another one. This is different persons. Lululemon secrets. Lululemon secrets. This person also, is that it? Yeah, wait a minute. Is that the last one? Some other ones just say secrets, don't say Lululemon secrets, but they say secrets. Hundreds of those. Now, why do you think that is happening? I'll check out some of your comments on this. It's a bot. There you go. Yep. Just filling out my survey through chat. Plus ripping up lots of clothes so they won't be able to tell it didn't come from Lululemon when I check it back. They're all fired. Yeah, they were all fired. Yeah, they're all disgruntled. Sure. Oh my God. It's so funny. Yeah, they are. That's a yoga like clothes store. Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yoga. What's a guy doing with yoga pants there? I worked at Lululemon for 99 years. You didn't see me, but I did. Oh, that's funny. Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, when you look and if something seems to be too good to be true, here's what I recommend. Google. So when I saw this, and I'm going, this looks sketchy. I put in Lululemon secrets or whatever. I put in the search engine, and they popped up one after that one. Boom, 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 and they just kept popping up everywhere. So obviously a scam. When you see all the responses be a scam too, in other words, that no one is complaining that this is a scam. So something is preventing them. One of the things is putting in that many comments so you can never get to I did see 1 or 2 comments that were negative, but like 200 down, you've got to scroll forever to get to that one negative comment that says, hey, I took stuff back, and they wouldn't take it back because they want to keep you from finding out the truth. So that's one way to do that. If you ever get an email or a text that says things like, FedEx, we're trying to deliver your package. It seems to have a wrong address on it. Click here. Never click there. Always go to Google and put in exactly what they just said, and you will see it pop up as a scam. So don't click before you check it all out. And if necessary, call the post office yourself. Call the bank yourself. Call Lululemon yourself and find out before you click that, whatever you're clicking, because that is where things go badly. And whether it's that somehow you're going to get your credit card stolen off of you or your whatever, just stop clicking on things that you do not know are true. If you get somebody calling up and scaring you, they're from the IRS and blah, 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 and you need to call this number and give all this information. No, you call the IRS, like with the real IRS number, and they'll tell you that's a scam. But a lot of times you just put it in the Google search engine, it'll just come up just like that in the exact wording, because that's what they do. So don't fall for nonsense like that. There's a lot of cool things on TikTok. A lot of my favorite stuff is on TikTok. So I enjoy it. And a lot of my friends are on TikTok. So I don't do TikTok only because I'm too lazy. Again, I'm overwhelmed with just doing my YouTube channel. I don't have time to put everything on. Have every one of my videos every place else too. I just don't have the energy for that. So, all right. I want to talk about Tammy Nattaway. This is just a sad case that, where's Tammy? And it goes to show where the adults sit. Whoops, wrong one. I'm going to get to that one. Oh, maybe I'll do her first. Hold on, I'll do her first because we have people here from UK. All right. Oh, no, this is Brazil. I don't know why I'm thinking this is UK. you remember the lovely lady who poisoned the beef Wellington? Well, this lady is a poisoner too. her name is, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly because it's probably Portuguese. Dias Moura, I don't know. 39 years old, has been arrested on suspicion of triple murder and attempted murder. She didn't make a beef Wellington. She made this lovely Christmas dessert, which she laced with arsenic. I actually thought that the beef Wellington crime was a lot smarter because she used mushrooms that were poisonous. Much harder to figure out she poisoned anybody on purpose, which clearly she did, but much harder to identify it, much harder to prove she did it. In this case, arsenic is arsenic. It doesn't just accidentally end up in your Christmas cake. But this woman, and it also goes to show when you're having a falling out in the family and people are threatening you, pay attention. Don't go eat Christmas cake with them. Don't be stupid. So let me find the Christmas cake. Okay. So she actually, there's this new twist in the case. So this is what happened. She had been arrested on suspicion of triple murder and attempted murder. And what had happened is she had made this cake. She was the only one of the three sisters who ate the cake. I'm sorry. One sister did survive that ate the cake. It's as badly written, by the way. So she served this cake to family. Three sisters. She was only one of the sisters survived. The other two sisters died, and they found arsenic in their blood of the people who ate the cake. Niece Tatiana Denise Silva de Anjos, 43, and sister Maida Berenice Flores de Silva, 58, passed away after eating the dessert when they suffered cardiac arrest. All right, so why did they eat this? Well, they supposedly this tragedy happened on December 23rd during a family gathering, okay, at one of the victims' apartments. And this lovely lady brought along her Christmas cake. Look, I'm contributing to the food. Her husband, Jefferson, who did survive, told the outlet everyone started to feel sick right after eating the cake. He said, Zelly ate first and said, wow, it tastes strange. When I took a bite, I also felt something sour. Then Nuza went to eat. She ate, took a bite, and went for a second. No, don't eat it because this cake doesn't taste good. It had an odd and spicy, peppery flavor. However, in spite of the fact they thought it tasted off, I guess they didn't want to insult the baker, so they went ahead and ate the damn cake. Zelly fell ill after reportedly eating 2 slices. Oh, the crass stuff was terrible. Why would you eat 2 slices of it? Of the Bolo de Natal traditional cake, while her 10-year-old great-nephew was also hospitalized after eating a piece. I guess he had a smaller piece and maybe didn't eat much of it. The kid's smart. Nuisa Denise, another one of Zelly's sister, was one of the 3 people killed, as was her daughter Tatiana. A concerned family member had reportedly raised the alarm about the family feud, reporting to the police 3 days before the incident that this woman had threatened the family in a heated argument. She threatened the family. Somebody threatens your family. You call the police because she threatens your family, and then you have her come to Christmas dinner and eat her cake. I'm like, are you stupid or what? I mean, and here's what's even more amazing. So they went and they found in her house an unidentified bottle of whitish liquid, and they also seized her phone, and she searched for poison for the heart, arsenic poison, and poison that kills humans. Here we have another stupid killer who Googles because they're not sure they're going to do it, and then they go ahead and do it, and it's in their search engine. So, not your search history doesn't go away. Arsenic is a metallic element that occurs naturally, but not in the amount that's in that cake. So anyway, they that's how many got sick and died. And then here's the kicker. It turns out that Zelly's husband had died of suspicious food poisoning back in September. Okay, following revelations about her deadly cake, cops decided to investigate the man's death, who had repeatedly died after eating mashed bananas grown in the family's garden. The body was exhumed last week, and a postmortem confirmed that he had ingested arsenic. Sorry, hold on. So apparently she had already killed him off. That was her. And how did it happen? That's her father-in-law. He drank coffee with arsenic laced milk before his death. That's how he did that. So she's she obviously had issues with her relatives, and but the sad thing to me is that when you have somebody who will threaten you, believe what they say. I mean, there are threats like, "I'm not going to talk to you again." You're like, "Oh well, that'll be a shame." Yeah, you can live with that one. But if the person says, "I'm going to kill you. Watch your back. I'm going to come and kill you." I would say that's a major threat. And if you, I don't know what she said to them at the time she was reported to the police, but that's a major threat. I wouldn't be inviting her to hang out with the family and the children and bring her poison cake with her. That's just foolishness. So yeah. So I'm trying to remember. I know I did a thing on Lizzie Borden, but I don't remember now. See, I don't remember. Well, that that would have been easier than the old axe, but maybe she enjoyed the axe after all. She seemed to be pretty uh, energetic with it. Such an easy mistake to make when you keep jars of white arsenic in the pantry. Well, but I'm curious whether she tasted any of that of her own cake, or that she had some excuse for not eating the cake. Now, Beef Wellington lady, I got to admit, she was much more clever. I believe, she had ways to make sure those poison mushrooms weren't in her piece, which either a separate Beef Wellington was made so that she ensured who got the poison pieces and who didn't. She had all kinds of things. I'm not quite sure what she did, but I think she was smarter. She still got caught, but she was smarter. So, but this one, I mean, she did everything possible to eventually get caught. But when she killed off daddy-in-law, maybe she should have stopped with that. But I guess it just wasn't enough for her. She's pissed at everybody. So, because that probably would have gone unknown, because apparently they didn't do an autopsy then or a tox screen or anything. They just assumed he, I don't know, had a heart attack and died, and then buried him and never questioned. So I don't know whether she'd been threatening him. Now, anybody say anything about her relationship with daddy-in-law? But yeah, I wouldn't have invited her over. I would not. I'm not quite sure you are on the. Sometimes when I look at the comments, I'm not sure the talk is real long, so I'm not sure which issue you're talking about. So if I ignore you, that's why. Okay, I wanted to do Tammy Nattaway. It's a sad case. Okay, so Tammy Nattaway, she was a. Let me find it. If I can find a decent one. This occurred in Manitoba. This is another picture of her. This is Tammy Nattaway. She's been missing for a while. RCMP suspect foul play in the disappearance of 16-year-old Tammy Nattaway of Garden Hill 1 year ago. What happened to her? Now, they've gotten lots of tips, and this is 1 year ago. Actually, she went missing in 2020, so now it's almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years. She went missing July 14th of 2020. Now, I have a couple articles open, so I'll have to figure out which one it was that had the information I wanted in it. But try to pay attention to some of the dates here. She went missing July 14th and was seen by a family member in Garden Hill on July 20th. I don't know. A lot of this information is very, very limited. I don't know who this person is and why she would be seen 6 days after she went missing. Her family reported her missing July 31st, 2020. Okay, so she went missing on July 14th. She was seen on July 20th, and family reported her missing on July 31st. You see the problem with the day thing here? After checking with everybody they knew in Garden Hill, St. Teresa's Point, and Wassagamak, I might be pronouncing that wrong, First Nation. All right, so this is what happened. All right. Tammy's mother said it wasn't like her daughter, who liked to read fiction on her phone and dreamed of being a dentist or maybe a pilot, not to be in contact. I knew she wouldn't run away. She was timid. She wouldn't run off. She would barely walk to the convenience store by herself. We always knew where she was. We knew if something else was going on. Actually, nobody knew where she was. That's the whole problem. One can say that, but that's not true. So they have looked and looked and looked. Now, it must be the other article that has the bigger information, because this is where it gets fascinating to me. Okay, hold on. Gotta find it. It must be this one. Okay. Now, here's where it gets complicated. And this is where I think it's really sad that what happened to her. And why doesn't nobody know what happened to her? Okay. So now it says it's been 4 years since she went missing. She was 16. She disappeared from the Island Lake region made up of 4 fly-in communities in northeastern Manitoba. She spent her time between 2 First Nations. Now here's the picture of this. This is location. 2 First Nations. Garden Hill, where she lived in foster care, and neighboring Wasagamak, where her boyfriend and extended family live. Okay, so they're on different sides of the water there, but those are 2 First Nation locations, communities. So she was in foster care in one, and her relatives and her boyfriend were in the other. Manitoba RCMP believes she was last seen in Garden Hill in mid-July, but say it's possible she went to Wasagamak. Possible. Searchers say it's unusual she went to missing without a trace, save a piece of clothing. You know, they found a very, very clear piece of clothing that is hers, just out there somewhere, but not her with it. And it says here, further on, they've done hundreds of searches. Prior to her disappearance, Tammy sold her phone, which they recovered. Nothing more is said about this. What teenager sells their phone? That's pretty weird. And they say she sold her phone. And this is one of the problems, again, when I've looked for any more information on this case and can't find it, which is why I'm not doing a full case on it. Because for whatever reasons, that most of the information is totally withheld. She sold her phone. How did they know she sold her phone? Did she sell it to a store? Did she sell it to a friend? Did the friend say she sold it when the friend stole it? Did a boyfriend sell it and say she sold it? How do we know she sold it? I just don't know. And why would she sell it? Which they recovered. In a statement, they said extensive investigational steps into Tammy's social media activity and online activity have been taken leading up to her disappearance. They say foul play may be involved. Okay, now, that may be involved. She was the eldest of 9 siblings. This is her mom. And yet she has 9 siblings. She had 10 children. I don't know if any of them, all of them are moms or her dad. Her dad's side had a bunch of them too. I don't know. A whole bunch of kids. She's in foster care. Mom has drug problems, apparently. Homelessness. Father had alcoholism problems, disappeared, came back. Family's a mess. And she's been in foster care. Now, she's in foster care in Garden Hill First Nation. Okay, so we go back to this picture. She's in Garden Hill First Nation on the right side there, in foster care. However, she wasn't reported missing to the police until July 31st, more than a week after she was reportedly last seen. Hello, foster care people. If you're taking care of a child in foster care, shouldn't you know where they are every single day? And if they disappear overnight, shouldn't that be reported immediately to authorities? A week goes by and you don't know where your foster kid is. She's 16. She's a minor. What kind of foster care is this? And why aren't they being charged with neglect? I thought she was okay, said Mom, because she was under CFS. Well, Mom does have a point there, doesn't she? They said she was in good hands. Well, CFS should have their butts sued. That's what they consider good hands. But I don't know why they waited 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Island Lake First Nations Family Services not returned repeated requests for comment. Probably not. Now, meanwhile, it also says Tammy went out. It's still scrawled on the black with a black marker on the front of her grandmother's house. Tammy went out. That's over in Wassagamak. So she said, "Mom," or that's no grandma, Lena. No, Lena's mom. That's a bunch of different people here. Anyway, that person, mom or grandma, said she wanted Tammy to stay with family during this time. The mother had went out because she had medical problems. But Tammy was stubborn and wanted to be with her boyfriend. Tammy's boyfriend lived with his father, Wallace Harper, who isn't directly related to Lena Harper, that's the mom, in Wassagamak First Nation. So we look at this. So she's being in foster care in Garden Hill, but the boyfriend is over across the border there, staying with his grandfather. I didn't want her there. Wallace kept going back to pick her up. So the grandfather kept going to pick up Tammy and take her to his house. With whose approval? Tammy's boyfriend's uncle said Tammy had spent the day at his house on July 19th. He saw her on July 19th. When community members began searching for her and talking about her disappearance, no one ever came forward to say they taxied Tammy back to Garden Hill First Nation. So she was over at Wassagamak, and now no one ever knows if she ever came back to Garden Hill to the foster home. Nobody has any clue about that. So Wallace Harper said on occasion he used to pick Tammy up and bring her to his house in Wassagamak First Nation with permission from her foster home in Garden Hill to go stay with her boyfriend. She's 16, so they foster parents gave permission for her to be taken away to go stay with somebody. Had they vetted that person? Do they know they're safe? Does Child Protective Services know she's over there? And how long is she allowed to stay over there in somebody else's house with her boyfriend? Having sex, probably. He said Tammy wanted to be with her boyfriend, his 18-year-old grandson who lived with him, and she often asked if she could stay with him. Well, she can ask, but doesn't mean she should be taken there. Wallace said he can't remember the exact date, but he last saw Tammy 2 or 3 nights before she went missing, when he said CFS came to pick her up from his house. So he's saying that Child Protective Services, essentially, I don't know what CFS exactly means, or maybe Family Services. But anyway, they came to pick her up, but nobody seems to know where she is. I don't know what happened to her. All I know is she was picked up, and that's the last time I've seen her. They interviewed the grandson. He just kept saying, I don't know. Tammy's family says blames her disappearance on him because she stayed with him, adding the rumors that they've ruined his life. So he's saying, I didn't have anything to do with it. My grandson didn't have anything to do with it. They're just blaming us. Oh, wow. And there was also a party spot that she might have been involved in, and so on and so forth. Who do you think did something to Tammy? That is a claim that Native North American cases are often disregarded and not given the response others receive. That has been a long-term complaint. And she's with him or no? No, the boyfriend's around. She's just missing for 4 years. She's obviously not alive. The question is, who was the last person with her? And all the adults are useless. All the adults don't seem to take care of her. Hold on a second. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Gotta get my fancy tissue paper. That's what fell on the floor. But you've got a foster home, so they never have foster children. That's absolutely ludicrous. And that they allow this kind of thing and don't know even where she is. When you have a foster child, that child's supposed to be, you have to know where they are at all times. That's because that's what you're doing. You're foster caring, for God's sakes. You're not just providing an apartment for the kid to come and go at their own leisure. No, you're taking care of that child because the family can't. You've been handed that responsibility and didn't live up to that responsibility at all. And so I don't know. They should be charged with neglect, and I don't see anything like that. And then she goes off to see the boyfriend, and never, as far as we know, nobody ever saw her after, unless family services really picked her up from the boyfriend's house and took her someplace, which nobody seems to say she arrived anyplace. Do I think the boyfriend is the best suspect? Yes. But poor girl, I mean, and she just didn't get taken care of. I mean, she's a teenager, she's going to do silly things, but the adults were just, she had no responsible adults in her life, not one, including the damn family services, it appears. So that's just a shame. I absolutely think it's someone she knew, Mike, because she was with somebody the last time she was seen, and there's all this not paying attention to who she was last with. I don't believe what that grandfather is saying, or the uncle. Those guys over there, so they're not telling the truth. Somehow they're not telling the truth. The boyfriend is hiding, essentially. So the last she's known was to be over there. And she was never returned to her foster home. I don't know. It's a strange case. I'd love to know more about the investigation, but almost nothing about this case was out there. But I thought it was just sad because all the adults have failed her, every one of them. It's just no evidence of foul play. Now, I guess I don't see any evidence of it except for her sweater is like laying. What that jacket is just laying out by itself. So would she just dump it? Still don't understand the phone thing. It's a hard place to go missing from because of the weird location. It's hard to get out of there because it's isolated. So how did she suddenly leave? With whom? So it makes very little sense, except that somebody did something to her, and there's a lot of empty space around there to get rid of a body. Let's put it that way. Okay, so I want to talk about this other case of a missing woman. I always go on about drugs are not a good thing. Her name is Patricia Soto. And she's been missing for well, she's not missing. She was found. Sorry. She was found. Hold on. Where'd it go? Hold on. What? Hold on a second. Oh, here we go. Somebody just these they don't have the titles big enough here. Okay, at least not when there's a little box on your screen. Okay, family and detectives seek tips in a Washington mom's 2021 trunk murder case. All right, so here's what happened. They're looking for help to solve the murder of 41-year-old Patricia, also known as Patricia Soto. The mother of three was found tied up and dead in the trunk of a car at an auto yard in Graham, Washington. She had been reported missing from Burien by her mother more than a month earlier. Now, let me just show you where these places are. If you look up at the top of that blue line, Burien is up there. If you look down there where it says Roy, that's where her body was found inside of a car. That's about an hour drive distance. Keep that in mind. All right. Mom said she had a big heart, beautiful soul. She was a free spirit. However, the usual problem with these free spirits, she struggled with drug addiction after getting hooked on pain pills following surgery on her foot. So she obviously was drugs for quite a while. And then by November 2021, she said Tricia was ready for a change. She wanted to get her life back on track. Well, that's a good thing. She had 3 kids. She needed to. Tricia was scheduled to begin inpatient treatment on November 9th. So a week, so the beginning of November, she's going to go in the next week. She packed her bags and left them with her mother and then made one last trip to visit friends at an apartment in Burien. So she gets the bags packed. So she seems to have the intent to go into treatment. But she goes to this friend's house. Now, This is where I think it becomes problematic. The last trip, the last hurrah, I'm giving up drugs, but before I go, I have to do that. It's like, no, I'm going to go on a diet. So tonight I'm going to have a biggest meal I can possibly, the most fattening meal I can possibly think of. I'm going to go and get a whole bunch of fried chicken and French fries, because tomorrow I got to diet. I mean, I don't know how many people have said that. So that people do the same thing with alcohol and drugs. Anyway, Mom says, I said, don't go out there. You won't come back. I didn't mean it like that. I meant you're not going to come back. You're going to stay out there and you won't go into treatment. And Mom was right. That it was a huge danger and she shouldn't have gone. That would be the last time she saw her daughter. When Tricia stopped responding to text messages, Karen filed a missing persons report. I didn't know what to think. It was just radio sounds all of a sudden. The last confirmed sighting of Patricia was at her friend's apartment in Burien during the early morning hours of November 8th, 2021. The last time that she was seen alive was in the city of Burien at her friend's apartment, and that would have been late on November 7th or early morning of November 8th. Weeks have passed without any sign of Tricia. On December 21, 2021, so almost 6 weeks later, a grim discovery was made at a tow yard in Graham, where Tricia was found tied up in the trunk of an Acura TL, which was with a gold-colored hood. She had been driving the car that belonged to her boyfriend, who was in jail at the time of her disappearance. He's got an alibi. That's how you have an alibi. So he's in jail. She gets to drive around in his car. So he didn't do anything to her. The Pierce County Sheriff's Department has been dispatched there to investigate an odor, and they saw what they believed to be a deceased person in the trunk of the car, kind of through the rear seat, where the armrest passes through. So they were looking around the car. They hadn't opened the trunk, and the body was in there. So where did they find this? This Acura had been abandoned in Roy, Washington. That's at the bottom of this blue line here, an hour away from where she was last seen. It was abandoned just hours after her disappearance. They called the police because it was on private property. The police wouldn't come tow it. So eventually, to get this abandoned car off their property, they called and donated it to a local charity. Local charity is so happy to get this body in a trunk of the car. And then the tow yard came and picked it up. And that's how it ended up at the tow yard in Graham. They processed the vehicle for DNA, but they haven't gotten any matches. A lot of people have been alibied out. They've given DNA samples to be compared. They've given interviews. None of them they have been able to tie to the case. Detective Thomas believes more than one suspect was involved in her kidnapping. She left the apartment in Burien at 1 a.m. to go outside and meet someone. I think that whoever did this, Patricia definitely knew them. She felt safe meeting them, and they took advantage of that. Okay. First problem I have with the detective saying that is she felt safe meeting them. No, when somebody offers you drugs, you're a drug addict, you will go meet just about anybody. You will. I mean, you're desperate to get whatever you want, and you're told, come on outside and pay for whatever. And she went out and did it. But then the car disappears, and she disappears with the car. So somebody took the vehicle. Now, what do you think about the vehicle being found an hour south, 2 hours, just 2 or 3 hours later, it shows up south? What do you think of that? Could it have been someone who thought it was him because of his car? Possibly. Now, that would mean that she had to. I'm just trying to figure out how she's ending up in the car and why she would be taken away. She was at the people's house. She went outside and I guess didn't come back. So she got in the car. Somebody put her in the car. His reputation got her killed. It's possible. It's possible. It's like maybe somebody was pissed off at him, decided to do her in. They didn't say if she'd been sexually assaulted, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, meet someone. That's what I think. I think there was no good reason why she went outside and disappeared unless it was drug related. That's my belief. A drug run. Okay. That's a long way for a drug run. It's an hour away. I mean, people usually don't go that far just to, I don't know what kind of drug she was using, but I would think there would be people in town that would be useful. I'm not quite sure they go that far. All right. Princess says the vehicle is closer to where the perp lives. One does wonder, because there has to be a good reason to drive all the way down there. I mean, you want to dump a car in a body. I mean, there's a lot of other places you can do it. And this guy, the detective was saying there's two people involved. And the theory there, I don't know what the theory is. It may be that the theory is there was a second vehicle. So somebody drove her vehicle and somebody drove the second vehicle. But I don't understand. If you're just going to dump the body, you don't have to go that far. You just drive that car, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles away, dump it someplace in the woods, and get out and get in the other car. You don't need to go that far. So it does make me wonder what connection whoever killed her had to that area that was 1 hour south, to that exact area. I think they have to have a connection. I don't know what the police have discovered, whether they have a suspect that has a connection down there of some sort. I don't know, but could it have been a drug run possibly, and something went wrong on the way? And does there have to be a second car? Not necessarily. If somebody had come with somebody, been dropped off, and we're going to hitchhike or something to get back home, and then ran into her and somehow ended up in her car with her, and they said, well, I got to get back to my house. So they just decided to dump her down there and walk home. It's possible. But they haven't come up with anybody. So it's just interesting. That's a good point. All right. People who want drugs will drive a long way for drugs. It's possible. Yeah. So we don't know what happened to her. Just, and no, it wasn't actually a remote location. It was on somebody's property, and they saw it right away. They're like, why is this car abandoned on my property? And that's why they called the police to tow the thing off of there, and they wouldn't do it. So they called somebody else to get it off their property. So it's obviously not that well hidden. I'm going to guess, because again, there's very little. There's another case that has almost no information on it. Just off the road, just easy enough to dump and run. But it'll be probably dark, so nobody's going to see it being dumped and the person leaving. Why is she in the trunk? Why is she tied up? And we have no information on how she was tied, whether it was a sexual assault. What was the purpose of doing something to her? It doesn't say how she died. I can't find any information on it. It's interesting. So it's interesting. They have two cases where the information is very, very limited. But that's when you're going to look and you're actually going to investigate something. You got to find out all the rest of the stuff. Like, what is the cause of death? I mean, did she shot? Did it look like whatever? But why is she tied up in the trunk? What's the point of that? We don't know. Somebody likes to think. Okay, Mike says harder to hassle with finding another reliable source. Dealers are not reliable. That could be. It could be she just. Again, you're pointing out that somebody will do whatever they have to do, and maybe the people in the house, she went to visit them, and they had the indecency not to have the drugs she wanted for her last hurrah. And somebody said, "Hey, I know somebody down and whatever," and she said, "I'll drive." And then something went wrong. God knows what. And again, I don't know if usually when you find a woman tied up in a trunk, there's usually sexual assault involved, but there's no information on whether she was strangled, whether she was shot, unless I just missed it in the putting together, seeing this one particular site. I think I looked for a few more. I didn't find it. So, but it's interesting case. And somebody asked me to do, let's see what time it is. Somebody asked me to do the French carer, unbelievable French care case. This is, talk about, again, adults. What the heck is people who are adults, governmental officials who are supposed to be protecting children, allow this kind of crap to happen is shocking. It really is. Okay. I had Google translate it from French to English. Oh, come on now. Why is it back in French? Hold on a second. Back us up. Hold on a second. It was on Google Translate. Translate it to English. The heck? It says it's in English now. Now it's back to French. Hold on. Seriously? English. Hold on. Have patience. I may have to send this to Google Translate. Oh, come on now. It was in there. Okay, I'm going to put Google Translate back, and I'm going to, because the article is really interesting. So hang in. Google Translate. Okay, let's go here. Let me find the original. Okay, I've got to find who sent it to me here. Here we go. No, that's not it. Stephanie sent this to me. Okay. I need to get the load. Okay. Let me get the web address. Okay. Copy that. Go back to Google Translate. Okay. Oh, come on. Where website? Okay, website. I had this process already done until I decided to flip back to French. Okay. Let's see if it'll show up now, because it's really a bizarre case and really horrifying. Okay. Come on. Oh, finally. Jeez. All right. Took a very long time to translate. Okay. A family assistant is indicted for the rape of a 4-year-old child. Now get this. 32-year-old man was in prison Wednesday, September 25th, after admitting the facts, and they're continuing to identify other victims. The House of Horror. According to information from the BFM-TV, a family assistant in charge of a 4-year-old child medicalized at home was indicted this Wednesday on charges of rape with acts of torture and barbarity on a minor under 15 by a person in authority and sexual assault. All right. The man was then placed in pretrial detention. The child, who suffers from developmental delays, was taken into care by the pediatric emergency unit. How did they find out what he was doing? They saw explicit videos on the Telegram network. Investigators were alerted by their counterparts from a neighboring country after the distribution of videos in which a very young child of French nationality is the victim of rape. The OFMIN police officers then tried to identify the young victim as quickly as possible, but they had very little information. One detail caught their attention. A medical bed appeared in the videos described as unbearable. I don't know what that's a bad transcription. Multiple requisitions and cross-checks were launched in all medical services in France and with primary health insurance funds. They were able to find, after a week of horrible, massive work, the child was identified thanks to the medical bed. Hold on a second. The precise model and distribution channel in France so they were actually able to find the kid. Now, how did this guy get a hold of this kid? His 32-year-old foster carer, not a hired attendant in a household with adults in it, from what I gather, but a foster carer, unless the translation is bad. He obtained approval from the Loire and Atlantique Department Child Welfare Service in early 2023 to become a foster family. Sure they had the right suspect, they decided to arrest him at his home in the suburbs of Nantes, or Nantes, I don't know how to pronounce it. But the 30-year-old had left France while the 4-year-old in his care had been hospitalized a few days earlier. Very quickly located in Tunisia, he ended up returning to the French territory before being arrested as he got off the plane. He admitted to having abused this 4-year-old girl. I thought it was a boy, but okay. Before distributing videos of his acts to pedophile networks in France and abroad. Still, according to the information, they had a clean criminal record, obtained the placement of this child at the end of 2023. I'm going to say, what the heck? I'm sorry, but I don't know if it's a little young child being put in How does this guy get hold of this kid? I'm sorry, but it creeps me out to think I wouldn't want my 4-year-old daughter or son with some guy, some guy. I mean, personally, I want a family. I tell you the truth, I want a woman in there. I want a mother. I want somebody who's been through the department a long enough time. How the heck did this guy just get this kid on his own? So he had a clean criminal record. Obtained the placement of this child with him at the end of 2023. Described as a sexual predator with a particularly worrying profile. He was employed in the past as a caregiver and began working as a babysitter when he was still a teenager. I don't know. I'm old-fashioned in that. I'm creeped out by guys being babysitters. I would never ever have my son be a babysitter. It's hard enough. I just wouldn't. I mean, I just wouldn't. I just wouldn't. Very close to the local community and having many contacts in national education, he had requested from the ASC to only have children aged 0 to 6 placed in his home. Yeah, he wants the little ones. His computer equipment was seized and is being exploited by the OFMI investigators. Investigations continue in order to identify other victims. Also led to the arrest of several suspects abroad who were recipients of these videos. Unbelievable. That's what I can say. Actually, unbelievable. That's appalling. I don't know who the parents of this child were. Where are they? I don't understand all of this. So to put a young child like that in the care of a single man, or it appears to be what they did, alone in a home, I don't get it. Yeah, maybe that's true. Princess says, I must have been super desperate for caregivers. And it's true. A child who is has major medical issues, developmental issues, it is true. It's hard to find carers for them because it's not an easy job. Let's face it. It's like nursing home work. It's not an easy job. Working with Alzheimer's patients, not an easy job. You either have to have a lot of patience or you need money really badly. It's one of those two things. You know, when you have sometimes you get the kind of care like my mother who had Alzheimer's, and there's one particular place she was in at the end. I love those people there. I mean, they were absolutely fantastic, wonderful, caring people, treated the residents so well. And I can't say enough nice things about them. But I know other situations where, especially when that place is cheaper and they don't pay as well, you get some people in there who really don't like those old people. And they can be pretty abusive. So it's hard to find people to do difficult jobs. But some things maybe should never happen. And I'm sorry, but young men left alone with young children, I just don't go for it. So, yeah, well, that's a differently interesting case. So there's a couple gay guys, and they adopted 2 young boys and proceeded to sexually assault them and film it. And this is one of these cases where I'm not going to get into the politics of whether same-sex couples should be able to adopt children and all that, because there's big arguments over that. But the point being that this is something that is an acceptable practice in the United States now, where you have a couple, often a married gay couple, married lesbian couple, whatever, and they would like to have some children, and there are children who need homes, and they raise those children, and they're very good parents. And so it's not something that happens often. In that particular situation, if those 2 men were properly vetted, there will be no reason to suspect them of doing something like that. Whereas, in my opinion, a single young guy taking care of a child alone is a little creepy to me, especially because he's not even adopting. He's considered a carer, and I don't know, the whole situation seems odd to me. Except that, like pointing out, there's just not enough people to do it, so they start going down the list, going, well, we'll have to take what we get because there's nobody to take care of this kid. So here's this guy, doesn't have a record. Yeah, well, let him do that. But that when they take the videos and then distribute them. I think that should be um, I don't know what the penalty is in France, but in my opinion, that guy should never see the light of day again. Um, that's horrific. Now, I'd let you know, my daughter worked in child abuse and as a detective, and she had to watch some of these films and these videos, and I've never seen anything affect my daughter the way that affected my daughter. It was talk about PTSD from that. That really was horrifying. And when she was in working that, it was like in home, all we watch is Walt Disney films. We don't want to see anything, not one thing. It's upsetting. And she could work in homicide, and that didn't upset her nearly as much as working in the child abuse when she had to deal with children who were sexually assaulted and filmed. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. That's interesting. I think the pandemic resulted in many bad decisions. Interesting point, Sarah. Harmony Montgomery was placed with her felon father. Wow. Yeah, who murdered her? Yeah. Nice. Love is love. Love is love. I like that. That's true. And yeah. But that was a pretty horrifying case. But I'm always looking at the adults in these cases because children have no agency. Children are truly. I use Stockholm syndrome sometimes. How children they got Stockholm syndromes. They've been kidnapped by these adults, and then these adults, raise them and do things to them, and they either they have to depend on those adults being good to them, and if the adults aren't good to them, they have to survive them. And some of them develop Stockholm syndrome, trying to love the parents that are quite frankly unlovable. But children, it is a roll of the dice that they know where the kids end up, and and it's just sad sometimes because they didn't have anything to do with where they ended up, what parents they got, whether they ended up in a situation where they're being cared for by people, biological or non-biological, who they want to be cared by. They don't have any say in that. So that's where the community comes in, where the community is supposed to provide a support system and an oversight system so that children don't end up in this horrible situation. But I think the more shredded the community is, the less they are really together, and the more we have just governmental agencies have to handle things that should be maybe handled better by the families, then you have a mess. We see that with the young girl in Manitoba. Everybody let her down, essentially, and everybody let this kid down too. It's really sad. Super, super sad. So anyway, I think that's, I'm going to leave it with that today. I'm going to go do this before I lose the rest of my voice. I feel actually, the weird thing is I feel absolutely fine. I don't have any, I don't feel sick. I have this, obviously this nose thing and the cough, but I don't feel sick at all. I mean, I don't have a temperature. I'm not tired. I feel perfectly fine. So it's kind of weird. But I'm going to say if I sound like this tomorrow, I can't go sing in it's our first chorale day, and I can't go in there hacking, and that would be unfair to other people. So I almost moved this till tomorrow. I'm like probably not going to be singing tomorrow, but who knows? I may wake up perfectly fine in the morning, I hope, and have my green juice instead of this pale stuff. Never been so excited about that. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you, Lady Jane. I appreciate that. Oh, thank you, Chris and Paul. Had good input for sure. So, I sound a bit better than last time. The husky voice was cool. What's her name? Was it Mae West? Oh, the really, really sexy low voice. I might like to go with that. Well, at least it sounds like it's like a little here, but it's really not in my chest, or it's not like bronchitis or anything. I still have some Zithromax left over from India. I can always check that, but it's not in my chest, so I'm not worried about the lung issue unless it descends. But I don't think it's going to, because it's been a few days now, and I just think it's gonna finally just disappear on me. So I hope anyway. So good night, everybody. Thank you for being here, and I will be back on Sunday with a case I haven't figured out which one yet, but I'll have something figured out by then. And thank you. See you soon. Bye.